Hello and welcome to the BetterU Podcast, where we go in depth and get to listen to stories of hope, strength, and courage straight from some of the leading health, fitness, and wellness experts who help transform lives one person at a time. I am your host, RKaye, and today we are joined by the lovely Assistant Professor of General Internal Medicine at the University of Saskatchewan, exercise physiologist, General Internist and Geriatrician, Doctor, in Filipino we call them Doctora. Dr. Anita Lwanga. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Anita. It's such a pleasure to have you finally on the show. We've had a few schedule changes, but of course, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you have a fairly busy schedule.
Thank you.
How are you doing for today so far?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's an honor. It's an honor definitely to be here and to share knowledge with you and your audience.
Thank you so much for that, Doctor. Now, of course, you do specialize and help your patients to optimize their diet, their exercise, their sleep, and medication to stay healthy and out of the hospital. Now, before we get into all of those wonderful details and all the advice and tips that you could share with us, of course, we'd like to know more about you and how your journey started from maybe when you were small, or was it really your dream to become a doctor? So maybe you could talk more about that with us today.
Yeah, that is a great question. So as a child, I was a competitive gymnast. Me and my siblings, I think there was six kids in the family. So we were rambunctious and our parents were smart. They put us in sports. And through my training as a competitive gymnast, I learned a lot about diet. Just through experimenting. Probably I didn't eat the healthiest diet, but I noticed what I ate affected my performance. And sleep, I really noticed early on if I didn't sleep enough or have good quality sleep, my performance was impacted. So a lot of the lessons I learned, as an athlete carried through to my career. When I did my undergraduate studies, I decided to study exercise and health physiology, or under the umbrella of kinesiology. And there I learned a little bit more about nutrition, a little bit more about exercise, and a little bit, I don't think we did too much about how sleep impacts your performance, but most of the focus was on how we can use these things to improve our performance, or if we're working with athletes, improve their performance. Thereafter, I thought I wanted to do sports medicine, so I went to medical school. But through my training, I remember always being told, keep an open mind, don't just think I'm going to go on this path. And with that open mind, I ended up choosing general internal medicine. So internal medicine is the specialty where we take care of adults. And I also did an extra fellowship or extra training in geriatrics, which is the care of adults that are 65 years and older. So we learn a lot about, ordering tests, which medication to give your patients. And we do speak a little bit about how to use the lifestyle to treat our patients, but we don't have a big emphasis on that. And I found as my career matures, the more I talk to patients, the more I realize patients that I work with really don't know much about how to use their diet, even how sleep affects their health, or even how to use exercise to improve their health. And a lot of people, if they knew this information, would want to focus more on that. So I've started to incorporate that a lot into my practice. I still use, traditional means of medicine. For sure, there's situations where it's, diet and exercise and sleep are not going to help that situation. But I think it's important to educate people and for individuals to be aware.
That is absolutely true. Like, I know for a fact that a lot of people, sad to say, they don't rely really on the expert to help them. What they rely on mostly these days is Dr. Google. So that's something that a lot of us in the field of health and fitness and wellness, that's something that we always strive to help other people with, right? So, in terms of your background, like you were an athlete and then you proceeded to take um, med school. Was there ever an instance where you thought to yourself that, you know, the path you were chosen, like you were aligned to help and proceed in that field, or was there a specific maybe experience that you had that really sort of gave you that little light bulb that said, maybe this is the career that I need to, take into consideration, or was there like other options for you during that time, something else other than medicine?
That's a great question. I love that you're asking that question because I think all of us in life are somehow looking for our purpose, and we
Yes,
wonder,
exactly.
is this career path that I'm taking part of my purpose? So I'm going to answer that in two parts. First of all, I think people need to step out and experiment and see, if something intrigues you, go ahead and step out and see. And if it works, that's great. If it doesn't work, that's okay. You can always pivot. And then going back to my story specifically, I think before I got into med school, I was a little bit all over the place. I was like, ooh, real estate, because I think it was the era where real estate was booming in, Alberta and Saskatchewan. But I had really good parents who said, focus on one thing, no plan A, B, just have plan A, follow through with that. And then if that doesn't work, then you switch to plan B. But don't be all over the place because it's really hard to focus and accomplish a goal if you have multiple goals at the same time. And then going back to, was there a moment or any moments that reaffirmed my choice? I think there have been many. I think no matter what you do, there'll always be doubts. There'll always be moments where you're like, this is a bad day. I think I made the wrong choice. And then there are days when it's like, oh, okay, this is what I was meant to do, So I can't say that there's one moment, but I say there's many. There's been many moments where it was a bad day and I thought I made the wrong choice. But there've been other moments where, seeing somebody get better and you're like, wow, it's really humbling. It's not that, as physicians, we're actually healing people. We're, to be honest, buying the body time sometimes, or, giving the body tools to get better with medications. But to see the impact that the medication you started, somebody gets better, it's like, okay, this is incredible. Like, this is really amazing. Or if a patient comes back and says thank you, you're like, oh, this is incredible. And even thank you for simple things. I had a patient last year who wanted to give me a hug at the end of her hospital stay. She's like, thank you for, taking time to talk to me. And I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that just sitting down and talking is so impactful. So I think no matter what you're doing, it doesn't have to always line up. You can have good days and you can have bad days. Take those good days and hold them close. Take the bad days and try to throw them out and forget about it. But whatever path you choose, I think just experiment and always be willing and ready to pivot.
That's actually an absolutely brilliant way to, help other people recognize that it's, doctors and experts and everyone else, we're all just human. We all just experience life like everybody else. And it's absolutely great that your parents were there to support you. And speaking of your parents, are there other people? I'm sure your parents are very, like you mentioned the word impactful, but I'm sure your parents, your family have been a huge impact in your career and your life. Are there certain mentors that have also been an impact to you and have helped motivate the career that you have now as a doctor?
Wow, I love that question because there's this proverb. I'm not sure if it's an African proverb, but I'm sure you've heard people say it takes a village to raise a child. So I think there have been so many people beyond my parents, and I'm sure my parents would say yes, that impacted and supported my career. There's a family friend who's a neurosurgeon, and despite being a neurosurgeon, he was so humble. Like, he'd take time to talk to me. If I needed a letter of recommendation, he'd write a letter of recommendation for me. If I'm studying for a test, he's like, keep going, don't ever give up. Like, not just one neurosurgeon, like family medicine doctors. I remember out in college, I was the nerd, in Starbucks, sitting and studying. And I'm like, on Friday, everyone is having fun. And there was a local family doctor who knew I wanted to get into med school. And he saw me. He's like, "You're doing the right thing." And I was like, in that moment, I'm like, I don't know. But all those memories come back. And even during my training, I had so many attendings who took the time. Attendings is what we call like mentoring physicians when you're in residency. They would tell you things. And a lot of those things stick with me, like whether it's things about your personal life or things about how to handle stress or how to handle death. There's too many people to name, but all the attendings that taught me, so many program directors that encouraged me and wrote letters for me when I was getting my first job, or even now, some follow me on social media and they're like, "Yay, good job!" Like there's one, her name is Dr. Kaur. She was my geriatrics fellowship director. She is one of my biggest supporters, no matter what I'm doing. She is always cheering me on, and all of those people are my mentors. All of those people have such beautiful things in them that I want to also share with other people who I'm training. So there's too many people to name, but yes, all those people impacted me and shaped me.
That's absolutely wonderful. Like it's just so remarkable that there are people out there who, get to see what you do, all the effort that you put in, and they do help you and support you and cheer for what you're doing, right? And of course, I'm sure you as well, you have helped a lot of wonderful people. Has there ever been so far in your career where you have helped a patient and it was such, a heartwarming story from beginning to end when you were helping them? Was there ever a very inspirational experience with a patient where you look back and you always kind of tell yourself, "Oh, that's such a wonderful experience"? Has there ever been one for you so far?
Wow, there are too many to name. I think I'm going to kind of give a story that might not necessarily be the one that has a happy ending, but it's one that really helped me learn about managing stress. I remember when I was a trainee, I can't remember whether it was like the second or third year of residency. We had a patient that was in the ICU and he had a lung condition that's very rare but very serious. And he was in the hospital for a long time. I think it was probably several weeks. And sometimes he'd get to the point where he couldn't breathe on his own, so he was on life support. And I think at one point in time, he actually got better, which rarely happens. He got off of life support, and then we sent him from the ICU to the regular medical floor. But unfortunately, he became worse and then had to come back to the ICU and was put on life support. Unfortunately, he passed away, which is really unfortunate. But the things that touched me, like I learned so many lessons from this. Number one, his family, even though we didn't have a good outcome, his family was so thankful for all the support that we gave them. Like after the patient died, we as the training doctors taking care of him were so emotional. Like we were so distraught, we're crying, and the family comforted us. Despite them being so sad, they still took the time to say thank you and comfort us. And so that was one thing, like just seeing how incredible human beings can be. Like I always tell people, we see the best and the worst of humanity in medicine, but I'm like, this is the best of humanity. Despite their suffering, they still reached out to comfort us, who should be the ones comforting them. So that was one lesson. Another lesson, the supervising doctor working with us was actually our program director as well. So she is somebody who's very influential, and she's also an intensivist. And intensivist doctors are the doctors that work with patients who are very sick on life support at the end of their life, and sometimes you're able to turn things around. But we were distraught, and the thing that I learned from her that was so amazing is that she was also sad. Like I was shocked to see this woman with all these titles who was also crying with us. And to me, that like really humanized medicine, because I was always told, you have to be tough, you have to keep going. And we're not really taught to deal with the emotions. Like in that kind of situation, most physicians, kind of bottle up their feelings and you keep going. But she took the moment to be there with us and show us it's okay to be human. It's okay to feel. It's okay to engage with your patient's family members. Like she was there with us. And despite her titles, I was like, wow, she is still so humble and still so down to earth and still so approachable. So I wanted to take that with me, in that, I don't necessarily want to be crying all the time, but I think it's important to show people that you're working with that you're human, you feel with them, you empathize with them, and even if things don't go well, you are still there with them. So that was a very important lesson and a very impactful patient outcome, even though it was not what we wanted.
Well, yeah, like sad to say the patient wasn't able to continue on with life. But yeah, I mean that is part of the medical industry, right? Like people always say that doctors are desensitized with everything, but truthfully, I also have like my own friends who are doctors, and they too are human. You guys, you also feel the need to, really give a little cry if your patient, you know, unfortunately passes away, or you're very joyous if your patient, turns out to recover completely, right? And that's absolutely, a really really good experience and a really good story that you were able to share with us, because there's always hope even despite of all the sadness that happens in life. But now, I wanted to, um, go back now and kind of ask you the the tough questions. No, just kidding. Like the lessons that normally, and the advice that normally comes up when people talk about health and fitness, which is weight loss and all that, everything that we see on the gram, on the Instagram. And I'm sure that you, when you get to like look at your own timeline, you just go shake your head and say, "Oh goodness," right? So aside from, of course, Dr. Google, people like to go on Instagram to see people exercise and see if that could actually work for them. So for you as the expert in your own field, and with medicine as a background as well, what do you think have been some, or if not, could you choose like one specific maybe myth that you would like everyone to know today, that it is something that people should really look into and just, not believe anymore, right? Because there are a lot of health and fitness myths out there, and people still actually believe it, right? So, is there something that you'd like to share with us, or maybe a few from your own perspective?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I think the number one myth that I would like people to not believe anymore is that you can out exercise a bad diet. You can't out exercise a bad diet. So, where to begin? In terms of a bad diet, I mean eating processed foods most of the time. It's okay to, give yourself a treat once in a while. But if you're eating McDonald's for breakfast, name it, your favorite food, fast food, or even your favorite cookies, treats multiple times per day, a lot of those foods are very dense in calories. They tend to add a lot of sugar, which makes it addictive and which makes us want to go back and buy more. But I'm trying to think, those big Starbucks cookies, those are probably like 300, 400 calories. How long does it take to walk that off? Depending on how fast you walk, it could be like an hour. So imagine if you have that every day and then you have to walk an hour and a half just to burn that off. You can eat food that's more nutritious and that is potentially lower in calories. For example, a chicken breast is probably about 300 calories, depending, 250, 300 calories, but it's high in protein, it's natural, it's not processed. A nice salad as well would probably be fairly low depending on what you're putting in it if you're not putting a lot of salad dressing. But all the vegetables in there are really good for you. They have lots of vitamins and minerals, phytonutrients, many, many good nutrients. So try to choose foods that are healthier, and it's important to be calorie conscious, not too calorie conscious, but be conscious of what you're putting into your body. Pizza. I think most of us when we eat pizza eat like 3 slices. That's probably going to be 1,000 calories. How long are we going to work out at the gym to make up for that? It will be easier to eat like a nice meal with like fish, rice, broccoli, like a balanced meal, you're going to eat a lot more volume, be full, but you're probably not going to pack in the same calories you pack in the pizza. So that is one myth. I don't know if we have time for more.
Of course, you can share a few more. I think a lot of our listeners would really learn from more information from you. Maybe one more.
Okay. One more, and I'm going to give you guys a story. Sleep. Sleep is extremely important. A lot of us don't realize that our body is actually doing a lot of work while we sleep. A lot of us tend to think, sleep is a waste of time. I have too many things to do. But on average, most adults should be getting 7 to 8 hours of uninterrupted, good quality sleep. And the best time to sleep is at night. It's very difficult if you work a shift job or work a night job. That also impacts your quality of sleep, even if you're getting enough sleep. So when we sleep, one of the hormones we have called cortisol actually goes down. Cortisol is important during the day. It goes up and it helps us respond to stress. It helps our body, utilize glucose properly. It does a lot of important things, regulates our blood pressure during the day. But if you don't sleep enough, the cortisol won't go down. On top of your cortisol levels not going down and you not responding to glucose or sweet foods properly during the day when you're not getting enough sleep, other hormones called ghrelin and leptin, these hormones are involved in helping you feel hungry and also helping you feel full. These hormones are not reset. So you're going to have them off balance and you're going to feel hungrier. So the problem is, say your basic metabolic rate, like you're based on your height, your weight, how active you are, you're supposed to eat, say, 1,700 calories. So say you eat that on a normal day when your hormones are regulated. If you haven't slept enough, your body's going to say, I need more energy. And you're going to make a bad choice because also on top of that, you haven't slept. So you're going to say, I need 2 Starbucks cookies today. And then you're going to end up in like the 2,700 calorie category. And you're still going to feel bad. You're still not going to feel like you have enough energy. And that cycle keeps repeating itself over and over again. It's going to be much harder for you to lose weight. So just a story to add to that. I was talking to my brother about weight loss and I told him different tips. And he's a guy that sleeps 4 hours and he functions well. Like he thinks he's doing okay. But the funny thing is he just decided to take the tip of sleep. In 1 month, he lost 11 pounds and he was shocked. He was like, what kind of magic is this? Sleep made me lose weight. And when I was talking to him, he was, giving me the feedback about his weight loss. He was still eating his pizza, but he lost 11 pounds just by sleeping. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, it is incredible. And a lot of people really do. This is the thing, like a lot of people really do not look in or take into consideration, as you mentioned, take into consideration sleep and eating the right type of foods that can really sustain you and be a fuel to your body. And I think, thank you so much for the information that you have shared with all of us. So everyone, Dr. Anita is telling the truth. It's from a doctor right now. So if you guys are so confused with the information that's shared out there, it's so many different information. And now we do recognize and understand that sleep and eating the right type of food, those are very essential to your health and fitness. Now, Dr. Anita, is there a specific tip, like the easiest tip that you could share with our viewers today that they can do right now, like today, that could help sustain and help their health and fitness become better?
Yes, going back to what I talked about, trying to choose nutrient-dense foods and eating a diet that is balanced. The simplest tip, and I can't take credit for this, I can't remember who said this, but when you're selecting foods, look at your food and ask yourself, does it fly? Does it walk? Does it swim? And did it grow that way? A quick example, Rice Krispies didn't grow that way. Brown rice grew that way. So, take some time to get yourself educated as to what food looks like in its natural form and try to choose those foods. Say chicken nugget versus chicken breast. The chicken nugget, we did something to it. The chicken breast is more closer to its natural form.
That is such a fun tip to remember. And I will share that again as well to everybody. But yeah, that is like one of the easiest things that we can look into. And people just, I always share this with some of the guests that I've had previously. It's like people just make everything so complicated when it's supposed to be just very, very simple, right? Well, Dr. Anita, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there one special quote or one lovely piece of advice that you would like to leave us with today for our audience?
Wow. I guess a piece of advice in life in general, it has nothing necessarily to do with the diet. But I think the letter D, like all of us want to do things with excellence. We want to get things done, but sometimes we're a bit slow. So this is a productivity tip. I just tell myself D is for done, like the letter D, grade D. Just get it done. You can go back and fix things, but if you want to be productive, just get things done. It doesn't have to be perfect.
That is a wonderful piece of advice for everyone. So yeah, we are done. So it's done. The episode is done. See what I did there? Okay.
I see it.
To everyone who would like to see Dr. Anita's work online, she has so many useful and wonderful information to share with all of us. If you would like to access all of that, I will leave all of her links and even a website for you to all of her work in the description box below. Now, everyone, thank you so much for listening and joining us today at the BetterU Podcast. And as I always say, Coach RKaye here signing off. Thank you for all of you and all the crew give up on your movement journey because it's never too late to move. Bye-bye.